said yes to things that weren't aligned. Intuitively, I felt something was off. It wasn't aligned, and we had to pull away from that project in the end. Great learning, and I know I'm never going to do that mistake again, right? We've been conditioned to think about our skin a certain type. Oh, is it oily? Is it dry? Is it breaking out? I have an acne prone. I have sensitive skin. Everybody has a sensitive skin. The one human skin is sensitive. When you strip it from its oil, from its salts, from its elements, of course it's going to be sensitive. It has nothing to protect itself. But it's a fabulously resilient organ when you know how to care for it and to listen to it. At some point you need to, okay, no, I'm focusing there. This is where I need to be. I feel this. And again, it connects to your intuition. I feel this is a hell yes, and everything else is a no.
Welcome to the Powerhouse Podcast for founders and leaders, scaling smart and thriving without burnout. I'm Nicole Overcamp. Stay with me here and let's get better together.
Dr. Mimi, welcome to the show. I am thrilled to have you here. I've been following you. I saw you speak at a conference and loved everything that you had to say. I just was soaking it up as I was a sponge. And you are a PhD biochemist, a former biotech executive, and now the founder of Vegam. And what makes your work so compelling, to me anyway, is how you've really personalized it, humanized it, and truly the story behind your brand. That's the part I love, especially behind female founders. Typically, we aren't starting companies to just make $1 billion. We're starting them first and foremost because we want to make an impact and drive change. So where did this all start?
Okay, well, first, thanks for having me. It's very exciting to be chatting with you. Yeah, where this all started, probably when I gave the talk, because it's a recurrent theme, and my life and my business, it's all interconnected. I do fundamentally believe everything is connected. But it took me probably 40 something years to figure that out. As a child, I loved nature. I loved discovering. I loved chemistry of life, if it makes sense. And I explored a lot. And I ended up as a teen in the chemistry club. I was a bit of a geek, and I was also training out a lot. And I had skin issues. I was on a track field, and so I was healthy, I was fit, but I couldn't figure out my skin. I went on this journey to figure it out. And that didn't work out so well, in the sense that I spent most of my teenage years with skin probably red, either from breakouts or from irritations, because the options that we had weren't great. And they're still not that great, honestly, when you want to treat or focus on what I call now a symptom. But I didn't know at the time, so I set on a course to figure it out. And I went on to do a PhD to launch something that made sense for the skin. I didn't know what it would look like, but I certainly knew when I finished my PhD that something was missing. We were missing something to make the system coherent. And I lacked a bit of experience and probably confidence too. And I, went on to discover the world a bit more. My mom had a diagnosis of leukemia that hit close to home. So try to figure out, okay, so what happened? How can we better support? How can we prevent? So the prevention route started taking more and more space. And I guess life also connected me where I think I needed to be, because I ended up going into biotech, pharma, in scientific affairs, working in oncology a lot, multiple molecules and multiple disease state. And at some point you start seeing patterns across diseases. So it's no longer symptoms, but it's, the functions, the root functions, you understand, you connect things. And then my son, this is a very personal story, but my son was diagnosed with a brain tumor. He's super well, but at the time I needed space. So we took space, and the company I was with transferred me into immunology. And this is when I really realized, my God, everything connects. in science, but in life too. Because at that time, we were making the connections, learning about the benefits of the gut microbiome, and being so curious around the skin. I was like, okay, so what's going on with that skin? And with that microbiota on the skin, because we also have skin flora, skin microbiota, right? So what's going on with this, realizing that the overall immunity was really dependent on the health of your gut, but your local skin immunity was really dependent on your local microbiota. And realizing this at the same time that my daughter was becoming a teenager and going through exactly the same pain point I had gone through, trying to figure out, okay, what should I do? And, because we are so focused on calming or curing or attacking the symptom, but we never look at the roots, at how the skin works and how it operates. And when you start looking at that and how the microbiota can support, you realize, my God, we could just flip it. And, so connecting these ideas at the same time as life struggles basically is what, made me discover this system, this new approach to the skin that I call now One Human Skin.
Yeah. And I think that's where I was like, so drawn to some of the things you're talking about is like, we are in, and of course for everybody listening, Dr. Mimi's in Canada, I'm in the States. And I think Canada is fairly similar in terms of everything. And I'm an 80s baby. So, growing up, it was nothing but products, and beauty was such a very narrow, I think, advertised thing for women. And when I was a teenager, I had horrible acne and also constantly trying to cover it up. But what was thrown to me was a myriad of medications, strong chemicals, strong creams. There's a cream for everything. And women, I can't remember the number. I looked at this a while ago, but we spend tens of thousands of dollars in a lifetime on multiple beauty products, just trying to chase a cure, and it's surface level. And no one is really talking about the root cause. And I think healthcare finally, and for those of you listening who follow functional healthcare, we're talking more about root cause, but skincare has kind of been left out of that conversation. And you describe skin as this living system that's shaped by hormones, stress, and trauma. And that's new for me. I haven't heard skin defined that way before. So I'd love for you to just explain about it a little bit. And then what are some things that maybe, if skin could talk, what would it be telling women that we've been trained not to hear?
I do think that your skin talks. It's not if it could, it can,
okay.
And it does. So we just have to listen, right? And this was, for me, quite a learning too, because we've been conditioned to think about our skin a certain type. Oh, is it oily? Is it dry? Is it breaking out? I have an acne prone. I have sensitive skin. By the way, everybody has a sensitive skin. The One Human Skin is sensitive. When you strip it from its oil, from its salts, from its elements, of course, it's going to be sensitive. It has nothing to protect itself. But it's a fabulously resilient organ when you know how to care for it and to listen to it. So the first thing I think we need to realize is that our skin needs are the same for everybody. Everyone has skin that works exactly the same way. But some people produce more sebum. Some people produce more salts. Some people have a metabolism that's more active. Others are slower. Some women have hormones that men don't have. But the skin works the same for all. But these hormones, this metabolism, where we live, how we train, we work out or not, and our lifestyle, they all affect everything. Everything's connected. So evidently, if you're in that period of the month where your hormone makes you produce more oils and you're sort of breaking out, well, your skin doesn't need as much oil, that in those days that it's drier. and or more glowy because estrogen is really helping you, right? So it's all of these variables that we've tried to, set aside and just focus on symptoms. But at the end of the day, it changes every day. So are you going to use the same products every day if your changes are daily? You need to adapt to those change, but we don't know how because we've been looking at the breakout or the dry patch or the hyperpigmentation and everything. So the second thing is your skin changes every day. You just have to figure out, okay, so what is it telling me today? What it tells me is that it's either dry or oily, basically, or just normal. So you kind of know how to treat it, right? So sometimes you'll give it more of these oils, lipids, and sometimes you'll give it more salts. Those ingredients that, by the way, the skin produces, but we wash away for different reasons, which we have to. So these salts will keep the water in the skin. And this is by keeping that water and making sure that you have the proper oils, that your skin will stay supple, will actually do its function regularly, and will be the best it can be daily. And this is also how you can protect it from premature aging. So it all connects.
Yes. In
Questions?
about so many questions, about this premature aging thing, because I am very much always feeling like when I look in the mirror, who is this person? And one of the things that I thought is cool about your product line and your website is it's so simple. There's like three things, you don't have a billion to choose from, where often when I go to skincare sites, I get so overwhelmed, and then analysis paralysis, and they all sound like they're going to solve all of my problems, and none of them do. And so can you talk a little bit about, number one, the products that you created and how they're different? But I recall you also talking at the conference about things that I thought were fabulous for the skin and not so much. They're kind of like money wasters. So being in finance and wanting women to spend money where it counts and get rid of the crap, I'd love for you to also share some of these popular things that we are using on our skin that's basically a big, huge waste and doesn't really have an impact.
Yes. Okay. That's a mouthful. Yeah, absolutely.
I know. I'm sorry.
So like I told you, I had to kind of reprogram myself to figure out, okay, so how am I going to approach this for my daughter? But at the same time, I was exactly where you are. I don't want my skin to look older I want it to look younger than I'm actually, but at the same time, I wanted to look natural. I wanted to feel healthy because at the end of the day, healthy look is so glowy. I think it's the most fabulous look. But to take this approach and to give back to the skin everything it needs, I had to map everything. So that was my first step, to map out all the ingredients, those that for sure you do not want in your products. And then those that you absolutely need for your three barriers. We haven't talked about these, like the skin, how I see the skin, the 1 human skin, but it's kind of composed of three barriers. We can talk about this later, but I want to make sure that these three barriers are super covered because they work together. And that's how, you can really have the nicest armor, if I can say. So this was the second thing I did. And the third thing is to dig into these molecules that many say they're, wow, like the greatest of all, but perhaps don't do much on the skin. And so I've called the third category the wasteful, so the good, the bad, and the wasteful, basically, or the bad, the good, the wasteful. So the wasteful are molecules that are not bad. If you use them, they're not going to be bad for your skin. They're going to support overall, but they're not going to provide the benefits that you think you're using them for. One example of that is collagen. Collagen is a protein. It's a good protein, but on the skin, it acts as a protein. It doesn't act as collagen. It cannot reach that deep in the skin, and it cannot take the structure because collagen is really for supporting your skin, right? Even if you take it orally, it's good protein. It's not bad, but to build the collagen, your body needs to do it. So you have to give it the building blocks and you have to give it the cofactors it needs to build it properly. And you do that daily because it builds daily. So that's why we will want to support our health, like regularly, consistently, much more than give ourselves collagen so that we can boost our collagen. It doesn't, unfortunately, work like that. And another molecule, I always talk about these two together, is vitamin C. Vitamin C is sold, like for many benefits. It is a great antioxidant, absolutely, but so much that it's not stable. So it's very difficult for us to know if the molecule the product we're purchasing is actually stable. Will it act as an antioxidant? So if you use it, it's not so bad, but some are so unstable that they create interactions with other ingredients. So my approach is to say, okay, it's not acting as a stimulator of collagen on your skin, because again, you cannot produce collagen on your skin, you cannot, use it. It's really used just as an antioxidant. And given that it's not that stable, why don't you use other source of antioxidant? Like most botanical will have antioxidants in the mix, right? Oils, vitamin E, like there are different molecules, polyphenols that have these properties. And what antioxidants do is that they really protect you from free radicals in the environment, so that, so you do want antioxidants, but you don't have to use vitamin C. What you do want, though, is to have daily vitamin C in your diet, because this is a cofactor for the production of collagen internally. So you want to eat, properly, and make sure that you do have that fresh peppers or citrus, evidently, but also, supplements of vitamin C if you notice you haven't been, consistent with your vitamin C, so that you're supporting your overall functions and also the production of collagen on your skin. So it's really, again, what I call a wasteful, because they charge a lot for these, just that one ingredient. When, the skin needs multiple ingredients to function properly. So if you, add that up, it can be very costly. So that's one of the other ingredients that I call a wasteful. So I think in general, the approach is to make sure that you have ingredients that are multifunctional. And evidently for myself, when I did that, so I mapped all of the ingredients, I wanted to make sure I had all of the oh yes ingredients that I call into my formulations. And the first tests were really looking at one product for all, because if the skin works the same for all, you should have the same needs, right? So I did that, and it was not working the way I wanted it to be. Sometimes it would be working for myself, but not for my daughter, and vice versa, and my friends. And, so we did multiple tests, because we did test everything on ourselves. And in the end, I realized, oh my God, and this is when I developed the one human skin approach and the adaptability of it. I separated the ingredients and then, the proportions and how they work together, so that on a daily basis, all I had to do was to think, okay, how is my skin now? How is it feeling? What is it telling me? And then I give it what it needs. And it's just two products that you use together, so that you add the 35 ingredients, but in the proportion that your skin is asking for. For instance, for the liquid that contains all the salts, no oils. It's the serum, but it has no oils in it. My teens, because my son also uses that, will use a lot more of that most days, right? And less of the cream, the emollient mix. So they mixed it in their hands, because it's a liquid. It really doesn't apply well if it doesn't have a bit of cream, because even teens that produce a lot of oils will need to have some oils, because otherwise you're straining the glands and you're asking them basically to produce even more, which you don't want, right? So yeah, by having this really simple system, you can adapt daily. So in a month, a woman, it's 4 shifts that occurs monthly. Sometimes it's oilier, sometimes it's drier. Evidently, your production and mine probably not the same. Maybe I use a bit more of the serum or a bit less than you, but I always vary. My proportions stay, more or less constant within, like the season, because there are big shifts that are also occurring because of the outside. If you're heating a lot, of course, your water evaporates more. So you need more oils to prevent that evaporation. It's kind of, but you will feel it. Your skin feels it, because if you're heating, you start to feel your skin really tight. So naturally you put more oils, and it becomes very intuitive, basically. So that was my process into, developing the brand and the approach.
Thank you. And, and bringing it back to the development of the brand, right? And going from scientist and working for someone else to starting your company, I would love to just ask, like, what were some of the biggest, like, pain points or lessons that you learned? I mean, I know for me personally, I went from feeling like an expert at my craft, and I was so good at being a financial advisor, but I really face planted when it came to what it took to own a business and learning those things. And I'd love to hear just a little bit about those lessons for you, because there's so many women too who listen to the show where they're probably at that inflection point of like, okay, I'm ready for something bigger, but what do I need to know and what don't I know?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I was reflecting on that when I was listening to your show, which is fabulous, by the way. And I realized, the switch from scientist to entrepreneur is actually pretty fluid. But in between, I had many corporate years. And I think this was the hardest, going from corporate to entrepreneur. Yeah. As a scientist, you're kind of used to be in the problem solving mode all the time. There's always something that happens and you have to use your creativity. Anyway, for me, like the approach I had, like whether in the lab, in the research, and that, you're solving problems. And as an entrepreneur, you're solving problems. So that mindset was there. But in corporate, you have, a culture, you have politics, you have these dynamics and a support structure that you don't have when you're launching a startup, which you're used to operating really fast with these tools and models, and then you apply them to your business and it fails because you're really used to relying on your head, which for me, I realized that I had to rely on my heart, my intuition a lot more, which I kind of had forgotten how to do during my corporate years, which as a scientist, I had more.
Yeah.
Pure scientist, because evidently, when you leave the lab and you do other things, in a startup, it's very, very flexible and very reactive sometimes, which you don't want to be. Whereas in corporate, you have all these structures that allow you to plan ahead and force you to plan, right?
Yeah.
So it's connecting to yourself, to your boundaries as well. Listening, I guess that's the word. Yeah. It's the boundaries that you set yourself, whereas in corporate, it's more structure that sets them.
Right. Yeah. And navigate that, and as you were starting the company, I mean, has there been a boundary or two that was, number one, really hard for you to set, but a powerful one that would be helpful for other women to hear about?
Well, certainly the whole yes. How do you call that? The hell yes. Hell yes. Because at first it was, yes. I was saying yes to way too many things, for sure. You don't want to miss opportunities because, you're testing the water as well. And sometimes your mind plays tricks on you. Or, I'm testing, I'm learning. At some point you need to, okay, no, I'm focusing there. This is where I need to be. I feel this. And again, it connects to your intuition. I feel this is a hell yes. And everything else is a no, basically. If I'm not sure, if I doubt, it's no, or not now, but it's no, right? Yeah. So this, for me, one of the biggest intuition. And to do that, I really believe you have to take a step back and be still with yourself, which is something that was not natural to me, to be still and to let the information flow. right? And it's a bit, like contradictory with all the scientist work that we do. We tend to be evidence-based, but yeah, it all comes back to the person, to us, to how we are, how we show up, much more than what we do. Yeah,
It's so
I
true.
think very, very important to care for ourselves. And we all say it, and I've heard it so many times in corporate. We had fabulous training on the subject, but you hear what you're ready to hear, right? And at that time, like, yeah, okay, fine, like I was structured, but it's so, so true as an entrepreneur that you have to protect yourself. And your mind space, your daily mindset is key.
Yeah. It's everything. It's probably one of my hardest lessons is protecting that fiercely and not letting anything else in, because so much of building a business is there is a science to it, but it is also an art and a lot of intuition for sure, and especially when you're leading people, and which actually brings me to my next curious question about you is there a belief when it comes to leadership that you had to unlearn from being in such a different environment most of your career?
Well, absolutely. And I think you alluded to it, the delegation and the trust and doing only what you can do best and delegating everything else, even if you can do most of it. And again, as a scientist and even in corporate, we're really pushed in a way to jump in and, support and do as much as we can, right? As much, it's a lot of doing. People are naturally loving the strategy and the thinking and, but there's also doing, connecting with it. And in my experiences anyway, my success came from a lot of achievement and doing. Whereas now it comes when I let go, when I I let people, drive the way they think is best because they know best in their space than I can. And it was certainly difficult for me because I'm an integrator in a way, in the sense that I love learning. So when there's a space where it's not as clear, I will figure it out. So I figure everything out, and then I kind of know how everything works. And you have to do this as a business owner, especially when you start, because you're doing everything right. But rapidly you have to shift so that it's others that are doing these that you're not so solid at doing. But it's letting go of that too, that you figured out, but now you no longer need to use. So it's a balance, right? It's a dance, and it's being very self-aware and still, so that you can hear what your instinct is whispering, because it's never very loud. It's very subtle.
Right. And knowing to pause and listen to that is critical, and one of the things that I had to learn was in learning to delegate, because I do like to control all the things, but it's not a good way to grow. It's to trust your people to do the things that they're really good at, but also accepting that they're not going to do it like you, and that's still okay. Right. That it doesn't mean it's wrong or bad. It's just not exactly like you. And reconciling that was something I had to really sit with, actually, and feel what would be okay and not okay, and evaluate that standard, and then how to communicate it in a way that made sense, but also was clear and made me feel good about continuing to delegate. And I don't know if you maybe dealt with something similar, especially in the world of science. You're a bit more technical, but I know it's so hard sometimes to just know, okay, 80% done their way is better than me doing it 100%, or, coming that way too. Right.
But you're absolutely 100%. I hear you. It's better done than perfect. But again, it's, boundaries. What am I willing to let go? There's probably, like you said, 80% of the stuff, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how it's done, as long as it gets done well, but even if it's not my way. But evidently with the science back and the brands and how we're, our philosophy, that needs to be on top of it, so it's really, the balance again at finding what remains aligned, because we're science backed and transparent. So if you're tweaking the message because it works better, I'm okay, but it needs to remain true, right? We can't, because this is what we're based on, right? So that was the part that I decided, okay, so this I cannot let go of, because otherwise we lose who we are. But it is very difficult because it pulls me back into the doing and the details, which is a dance is in getting back into the, like looking at the, like the higher purpose and the higher objectives, basically. So yeah, it's always, again, listening to, making sure it's aligned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
I guess this is the fun part of being an entrepreneur, really.
is it? Just kidding.
I mean, I love growth, and I think we learn, and I think I'm going to learn, there's the content, there's the science, but ourself, I'm going to learn all my life. I'm a student for life. That's for sure. On, like who we are as human and how we can grow and how we can support and be better humans, basically. So yeah. I think
I love that.
that's one fun aspect of
Yes.
yeah, the role. It has many struggles that come with that, but
For sure. But this is also what makes it fun, and sometimes this comes after the fact, when you go through that, and speaking to that, actually, is like, is there a failure that you've had in this journey that now looking back, you're like, that in the moment they always suck, but now you're so grateful for?
I don't see them as failure. That's the thing. So I've learned a lot of things. I've learned not to do the things, like one big failure was, if you spin it as failure, is when I said yes to things that weren't aligned. Right.
Yeah.
Intuitively, we had a big project 2 years ago. It was supposed to be, like the lever that would, like help us grow exponentially. And I felt something was off. And I had my project manager on it. And, I felt it was off. It wasn't aligned. There was, we were taking a step back instead of, and I kind of didn't listen because I was convinced by mentors, by, advisors, and we had to pull away from that project in the end because it was not working out for multiple reasons in terms of the staff, even there's disengagement that occurred, there, like multiple aspects of the business that I had to rethink all at once. For me, it's a great learning, and that's how I saw it. And I know I'm never going to do that mistake again, right? So again, I didn't listen to my intuition. Yeah, it was whispering, and I'm a very positive person, so I can spin and adapt very quickly, and that's the positive aspect. But at the same time, it was very tiring, exhausting, actually, that period.
Yeah, it's relatable. I think sometimes until we go through it and realize, looking back, how powerful it is to tune in sooner, or whatever the case may be. And they always do say, like, fail fast, and it's not a failure as long as it's a lesson. I do definitely agree with that, no doubt. But in the moment, in the storm, it's just sometimes it feels so defeating. And is there anything to... No, it doesn't feel great, of course. And every day can't be great. That's just not realistic. That's completely ridiculous to think. And, in the moments that you've had that were hard, and maybe you felt like you were in the slump of building the business, is there anything that helped you get through those difficult moments, whether it was a practice you follow, something you told yourself, or even... I don't know, a thing, a habit, whatever it is that is helpful for you when you're dealing with that?
I wasn't before as mindful of my routines as I am now, for sure. I've started meditating probably 20 years ago. We had a fabulous opportunity to spend 3 years in Mexico. That's where my kids were born even. And, we had this window. I wrote up my thesis. It was a fabulous window. And we had this transcendental meditation site. And, so I felt really, really aligned coming back to Canada. I hadn't found that group or that setting, and corporate and everything, like, kept me, like away from those routines, I will say. But as an entrepreneur, I felt the need to reconnect deeply. And what I was doing once, every couple of days or something, like now it's become a non-negotiable. I need to, to reset, to connect to myself. And this is part of my daily routines, and more than once a day. Yeah. So this helps a lot. I mean, yeah. And anytime I feel the need, I take a step back, and it doesn't take that much time. It's just a few breaths, really. Yeah. To really anchor myself and make sure I'm in the right mindset.
Yeah. I love that. It's a great technique. Routines for me are everything. I definitely have not mastered meditation yet, but it is on my list.
If you're breathing, you're meditating, right? That's what, if you're breathing, it brings cardiac coherence, it brings alignment. And if you're able to stay still, internally, and not be thinking about everything that you don't control anyway. So you just, let go of the moment. You're meditating. That's what it is, right? So
yeah, I love that. Perfect way to end. If it doesn't serve you, let it go. Just get rid of it. So, thank you so much for your time. I've really, really appreciated it. And we are going to have your website to your company, your skincare products, everything that you need to know about Dr. Mimi and her company in the show notes. And is there anything for the listeners? You shared so many wonderful things about not just your journey, but of course, skincare in itself. Like, if there's one message to leave everyone with, what would you like that to be?
Yes, I think it's a lot simpler. It's a lot simpler than we make it to, especially in skincare, but in life. So if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. I mean, so whether it's, like physically products or just what you're doing, right? Yeah. So listen internally, listen to your skin. It tells you, and treat it, nicely. And it will treat you nicely.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you, Dr. Mimi. And until next time, my powerhouses, continue to be courageous.